Good morning, everyone. Thank you so very much for joining us on our Wednesday Wisdom Devotional. Hope you're doing well this morning. Our reading this morning comes from Mark chapter 2. It is a very familiar reading for us. Jesus has just finished healing a paralyzed man who was brought by his friends to where Jesus was teaching. He was let down through the roof, and Jesus was amazed at the faith of this gentleman's friends. And of course, that's when Jesus pronounces his forgiveness, and then of course tells the man to rise, to take up his mat, and to walk, and he does. And of course, that indicates that Jesus not only has the power to heal, but he has the power to forgive sins. Right after that, Jesus meets one of his very first apostles, or disciples, if you will, a man by the name of Matthew, who is a tax collector. And the scripture says in Mark chapter 2, beginning with verse 15, that as Jesus reclined in his house, many tax collectors and sinners were reclining with Jesus and his disciples, for there were many who followed him. The scribes and Pharisees, when they saw that Jesus was eating with sinners and tax collectors, said to his disciples, "Why does he eat with tax collectors and sinners?" And when Jesus heard it, he said, "Those who are well have no need of a physician, but those who are sick. I came not to call the righteous, but the sinners." You know, as going through this book of Tablet to Table written by Leonard Sweet, he points out that this is a crowning moment in Jesus' ministry, that he gives us an insight into one of his motivations, his reasons for being here. And it is a primary reason, that he's not looking for those who who don't need a physician. He's not looking for those who have it together. He's not looking for those whose lives are all nice and neat and have been lined up and are going according to plan. Instead, Jesus is a doctor, and he is looking for those who are sick, and not just those who are sick, but those who are sick and desire to be well, those who desire for changes within their life, those who desire for things to be different because they're not going according to plan. What Leonard Sweet points out, and it's something that never occurred to me, is that where this takes place, it takes place at a table. Jesus is at Matthew's house, and Matthew, being a tax collector, but now someone who is following Christ, invites his friends, he invites his co-workers, he invites people who look like him, talk like him, and yes, have even acted like him. And this is big because tax collectors weren't just the individuals like we would compare with our IRS and just being paid a fair wage and collecting taxes for the Roman government. Because they worked for the Roman government, they were the mortal enemy of the Jewish people. They were deemed as traitors. And then most tax collectors, and we see this from a later encounter with a man by the name of Zacchaeus, gained their wealth by taking extra. In other words, they were embezzlers that took more money than what was required of them to take. So, for instance, if the Roman government charged 15%, like we would understand with our own government, 15 to 20%, well then Matthew, or a tax collector like him, would add an extra 10, 15, 20%, and they would take in that money. Of course, everybody's wondering, why is Jesus surrounding himself with people like this? Because those people are lost causes. Those people can't change. Those people don't want to change, and even if they did, they're beyond the reach. Jesus sets up a table. He goes to a dinner party, and at this table, he is surrounded by men and women like Matthew. He is surrounded by people who have been deemed unworthy, people who have been deemed lost causes. And what Leonard Sweet says at this table is that Jesus doesn't set up a moral table. It doesn't mean he doesn't teach morality. Doesn't mean that he doesn't teach what is going on in the lives of tax collectors and sinners and how they should leave that life of sin and how they should leave that life of immorality. But what he does is that he sets up what he calls a healing table. It's a table where these individuals come. They already know who they are. They have this one identity, and everybody around them up to this point has told them that they might as well just stay that way because nothing ever is going to change in their life. There's nothing greater than their sin, nothing greater than being a tax collector and or a sinner. Along comes Jesus, and even though he has the moral high ground, instead of setting up a moral table in which he holds the people, holds it over their head and holds them hostage to morality, Jesus, instead, being the great physician that he is, sets up his table as a place of healing. In other words, he tells individuals like Matthew, like Zacchaeus, like the woman caught in adultery and the woman at the well, that if you'll come to me and be willing to live your life according to faith and follow me, just like Matthew heeded the call of Christ to follow him, then what you can find in your life is healing. And that's something that we all need to be reminded of. We need to be reminded that no matter our current state, no matter whether we are the tax collector or the sinner, no matter whether we are the Pharisee or the scribe or the Sadducee, whoever we are, that the table of Christ is not a moral table in which he holds the morality over our head and enjoys sadistically watching us trying to achieve. Instead, the table of Christ is a table of healing. It brings healing to our bones. It brings healing to our flesh. Because the very mission of Christ as a doctor is not to call the well, but it is to call the sick. You, my friend, are not a lost cause. Despite what is going on in your life, despite the tax collector, the sin status that you may have currently, you, me, and anyone else that we come in contact with today are not lost causes. What people need to hear, what we need to be reminded of, and what people in our society, in your workplace, on your kids' ball team, in their classroom, wherever they are, what people need to hear is that the table of Christ is a table of healing. That if we will be willing to leave that tax collector and sinner life and be willing to follow him as he calls us, as the great physician, to bring wellness and health to our bodies and to our lives, especially to our souls, then we can find the healing that we so desperately desire and that we so desperately need. Remember, you are not a lost cause. There are no lost causes in this life. The work of Christ, the tables that he set, are not just moral tables. They're not just dinner tables. They are tables of healing. So whether it's here that he eats with Matthew, whether it's at the table that he eats with Zacchaeus, whether it's that he eats at the table of Mary and Martha, whoever it is, wherever Jesus goes, and whatever dinner table he happens to be sitting at that evening or that day, it is always predominantly a table of healing. So if you need healing, let me encourage you to go to the table of Christ. Let me encourage you to find within him what you so desperately need, and that is the forgiveness of sin and peace and assurance. I hope that you found this devotional to be worth your time. I hope that it has been encouraging and uplifting. If you can, please share it with your friends and your family. And if you live in the Raleigh area, we would love to have you come and pay a visit at the Raleigh Church of Christ. We're located at 911 Behringer Drive, and we have tonight Bible classes for all ages starting at 7 o'clock. And of course, if you're unable to meet with us, we would love to see you, Lord willing, on Sunday morning, 9:30 for our Bible classes and 10:30 for our morning worship. Again, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Hope you have a great day. Hope that you have a blessed day. Bye-bye.